The Entrepreneur's Library, Episode 4.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Library, the only book-centric podcast that reviews all the top-selling business books and shares authors' perspective firsthand. This is your resource to finding the next great book that will enable you to grow personally and professionally. Welcome your host, Wade Danielson.
Thank you for joining us on the EL. Today we have Al Lautenschlager, author of Guerrilla Marketing in 30 Days. Welcome, Al, and thank you for joining us on the Entrepreneur's Library.
Thank you, Wade. Nice to be here.
Absolutely. Will you take just a moment to introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about you personally?
Absolutely. I'm an author, speaker, marketing consultant. I travel the world talking about various marketing strategies and tactics for those that are interested in growing a business to do so with low and no-cost marketing tactics. I've been a business owner for 15 years. I owned a printing and mailing business in the city of Chicago and spent time in corporate America before that. And parallel to my business ownership, I started doing a lot of marketing consulting with small businesses. I sold that business in 2009 and focused today on the consulting. I speak to business ownership groups of all types at conferences, breakout meetings, keynote speeches, and so on. And I'm an author of 6 marketing books, with the 6th one out next month, and the third revision of the first one out this month that we're going to talk about today. So author, speaker, consultant, and just really am passionate about fulfilling my mission of helping businesses grow with low and no cost marketing.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Now let's jump right into the book, Guerrilla Marketing in 30 Days. It's the 3rd edition, which from what I see was just made available for purchase on June 10th, 2014. And now,
exactly.
Okay, good. Al, we're going to move quickly, but here are some of the top questions our listeners would love to get answered. And we'll start off with the first one, which is, what was the inspiration behind writing Guerrilla Marketing in 30 Days?
Well, as I mentioned when I introduced myself, I'm a former business owner. I currently own a consulting business, but I formerly owned a printing and mailing business in the city of Chicago. Coming out of the corporate world with a marketing background, I had to enter the trenches and start marketing from my bootstraps on day one. And I did that based on my corporate marketing experience, based on my education, and I did that from day one very successfully. I started helping other businesses do that because they saw my success and wanted to know what I was doing and how I could help them. So they asked me to speak to their chambers of commerce or their franchise or their organizations, and I did, and I found out that I really enjoyed that, and I was pretty good at it. And people were walking away with immediately actionable tactics that they could use the same day they heard about them. And I asked someone that I knew in the speaking business, how do you leverage this speaking thing that I've just been asked to do? How do you make money doing that? And they said, well, you have to position yourself in such a way that you are the absolute go-to person, the authority. And that means writing a book. So I said, okay, I'll write a book. And I was always known for finding opportunities and capitalizing on them. So I started writing a book on opportunity. I decided to get an endorsement from J. Conrad Levinson, the father of guerrilla marketing. And we ended up talking and deciding not to write that book. And I came up with the idea of doing something in 30 days. So we came up with the idea of Guerrilla Marketing in 30 Days. And I asked Jay if he would co-author it with me. And he agreed to. And that was early 2004. And the first edition of Guerrilla Marketing in 30 Days came out in March 2005. So that's the evolution of how that happened and the inspiration behind it.
Great. Al, there's a ton of books on marketing out there. What makes your book different from others regarding this exact same topic?
You heard me earlier talk about my personal mission of helping businesses grow with low and no cost marketing. And this book clearly is from the roots of guerrilla marketing, where low and no cost marketing, using unconventional marketing methods to market to conventional marketing goals is tried and true and displayed in this book in a big way. This book has proven examples. How do I know they're proven? I told you I was a business owner. I had to prove these. I had to do them. There's a lot of experiences listed here. There's a lot of stories of other people doing the same thing. So what makes a difference is the fresh examples. At the end of each chapter, there's an action plan that helps with the implementation. The number one problem with business today is implementation. This book gives you that. And the other thing is businesses know they have to market, but they don't know where to start. I give you that starting point in this book. It's really common sense types of things, but not necessarily common practice. And it really helps businesses get started, gives them that path, one step in front of the other, that roadmap for the marketing that they need to do for business.
Great. Now that we have a little bit of history or background of the book, we're coming up to my favorite part, which is the deep dive into the content. And you can take us chapter by chapter, or you can actually take us through however you choose. But really, we're looking to give the reader an excellent idea of what this book is all about, and if this is the next great read that's going to help them personally and professionally.
Okay, I'll do that. And I'm not going to go through every chapter. In the third edition, there are close to 36 chapters. The first edition, Guerrilla Marketing in 30 Days, had a concept per day. So there were 30 concepts covered. And with each subsequent revision, we've added bonus days. So this book has the 30 days, 30 chapters, 30 concepts reviewed, plus about a half a dozen bonus concepts. And I'm going to take you through the ones that I think that if businesses walk away, even from this recording right now, they can implement. They can get excited about what's in the book and know what their total read is going to be all about. The book is organized into days. It's just another name for a chapter, but I refer to them as days. And day one is something that's very imperative to any initiative, any objective, and that is the mindset. Day one is the guerrilla marketing mindset. Every single day, whether I'm in my office or whether I'm traveling on the road or meeting with clients, I think about the question, how am I building the awareness with my prospects and clients through all of the marketing that I'm doing? I consciously think about that. That gets me in the proper mindset to start my day. I meet a lot of people in my travels, and people tell me what their title is. People tell me what their job is. And I say, okay, change that mindset. You're all marketers of the business that you work for, that you represent. Am I biased with that mindset? Absolutely. But I've seen successful businesses become successful because of that mindset. So day one takes you through that mindset and how to develop the mindset. For instance, every single day, I'll do 3 to 5 things related to marketing before I get on the telephone, before I answer my emails, before I start talking to people, all related to marketing. I'm not talking about big things. I'm talking about things like maybe I'll handwrite a thank you note to a prospect, or maybe I'll brainstorm a direct mail campaign, or even brainstorm a tagline. That gets me into the marketing mindset to work back towards that question of how am I building the awareness with my prospects and clients through all of the marketing that I'm doing. And that's all covered in day one, and it really is a good starting point. It really gets you excited. It really changes your mind on how to go forward with that bias that I mentioned. Day one, guerrilla marketing mindset. I want to skip a little bit because I told you I wanted to hit the highlights, the ones that are most impactful for businesses today. Not that the other ones aren't important, but these are things that people can take away today. In day 4, I talk about the target market. And one of the things that I suggest to people, both when I speak, when I consult, and in the book, is your best prospect is a current client. I tell businesses all the time, in the book and when I speak, to spend over half of your time and over half of your marketing dollars on current customers. That typically surprises and astounds a lot of businesses. Current customers already know you, already like you, already trust you. That's much easier to market to than starting fresh with someone who doesn't know you and doesn't trust you yet. It begins with that, and then it evolves into a relationship, and relationships evolve into sales. I also say in that chapter, your best prospect is a current customer. Your second best prospect is a past customers. And I talk about a story in there where I had a lady one time who came into my printing company, and she was reviewing the proof of a brochure in our conference room. And about halfway through the meeting, she says, I've got to hurry up this meeting and get going. And I said, well, where do you have to go in such a hurry? She said, I have to go down the street to the printer to pick up my business cards. And I said, well, hear that noise in the background? Those are printing presses at our printing company that are printing business cards by the thousands. And she looked at me and she said, I didn't know you did that. In that case, that person sitting at my conference room table, a current customer, was my best prospect that I could market to. And that's all part of marketing, our target marketing. I also suggest in that day, in that chapter, magically define your ideal client. And I suggest that you put as many specifications as you can to that. If you're dealing with consumers, how big are the families? What's the income level? What's the educational level? Where do they live? If you're dealing with businesses in a B2B situation, what type of businesses? How big? How many employees? Sales revenue, and that type of thing. And that begins to define the target. Later on, I'll talk about you can send the best message in the world to the wrong target and get zero response. You can send the worst message in the world to the right target and get response. That's why targeting is so important. And that's what we cover in day 4, talking about the target market. Day 5 is probably my favorite day in all of the days that I talk about in Guerrilla Marketing in 30 Days. And that day is on positioning. There's an old-time marketer that I quote in the book, David Ogilvy. He's a famous marketer from the 50s and 60s and into the 70s. And he says that marketing results depend less on how advertising is written than on how the product or service is positioned. And that positioning is not something you do with a product or a service. That positioning is what you do in the mind of a prospect. It's perception. And everybody that is listening has probably heard that perception is reality. And that's exactly what we're talking about when we talk about positioning in Guerrilla Marketing in 30 Days. It is a perception. It's planting seeds into people's minds about your product, your service, your people, your company. Examples that I use. If I mention Southwest Airlines, people think of the no frills, have fun, stand in line at the airport airline. That's positioning, believe it or not. When 7-Up first came out, they positioned themselves as the Uncola. That's what's in our heads. That's the seeds that are planted. I use an example in the book about one time I was speaking in Ann Arbor, Michigan. After my speech, I drove up to the local Holiday Inn to check in. As I drove up to the local Holiday Inn, there was a sign out that said, "We are changing our name." Now, I pay attention to the news. I don't remember the Holiday Inn changing their name. And the sign said, as I got a little closer, "We are changing our name to the Holiday Inn, the hotel closest to the University of Michigan." They were planting seeds in people's heads. They were positioning their business that they're the hotel closest to the University of Michigan. I have to go to Ann Arbor in October. Next October, I need a hotel close to the University of Michigan. The Holiday Inn will get my business because they position themselves in my mind. One very important concept in this day, one of the most important concepts that you can take away from this book is Everybody that reads this book, everybody that listens today is an expert in something. People like to buy from experts. People trust experts. People have confidence in experts' work. That's positioning. It's okay to say, I'm an expert. I give everybody that reads the book permission to use the term expert. And I don't care what you put with it. If you look at my business cards, it says, I'm a guerrilla marketing expert. And that positions me in the mind of my prospects and of my customers. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do with that day and with that concept and with that perception. My second favorite day is day 8, where we talk about benefits, competitive advantages, and things like that. When I start talking about this day in the book, I say, I've probably got a little bit of bad news for you, and that is your customers and prospects don't care about you. And I'm sure people reading that will wonder, well, of course they do. We're really good at what we do. They don't care about you. What they care about is what's in it for them. Every time they take a look at marketing, they're looking for the benefits, not the features. And one of the things that I'll mention in the book, features tell, benefits sell. Benefits are anytime you can help somebody feel better, feel smarter, avoid pain, save time, save money, become more reliable to them in some way. That's what people look for when they look at marketing messages. What's in it for me? I suggest to people that they make a list of all the benefits that they offer to their customers and prospects. And then I suggest that they make a list of what their competition offers. If those two lists are identical, neither company has a competitive advantage, because in Guerrilla Marketing in 30 Days, I define competitive advantage as the benefit that a company offers that the competition doesn't. And that's pretty important. And that goes a long way. If you're the only one who offers something, you can market that as a competitive advantage. And that helps address the point of what's in it for me, which is what customers and prospects are looking for when they're looking at your marketing. Not all about you, not how long you've been in business, not how many certifications you have, not how big your equipment is. Those are features. Features tell, benefits sell. So these are just some examples of some of the days in Guerrilla Marketing in 30 days. I'll leave you with a couple more for the sake of time. Direct mail is not dead. And I've had great experience over my career using direct mail. There's some great examples in the book, but I offer 4 key components to consider when considering direct mail. And that is the message, the vehicle, the target market, and the frequency. Message, we've already talked about benefits. That's part of the message. The other parts of a message are something to get somebody's attention, like a headline, and an offer. The vehicle is, how do you get that message to the target market? In direct mail, we talk about postcards, we talk about letters, we talk about packages. And then the target, we've talked about that already. Over half of the success of a direct mail program is based on the target. That's why I spend that much time talking to people about how to specify their targets. And frequency. This lady that I talked about that came to my printing company also came to me one day and said, I want to do a mailing to 5,000 people. And I said, take 4,000 names and set them aside and mail 5 times to 1,000. Because of that frequency, your response rate will go up. And that's the types of things that I'm mentioning in the book. That's common sense, but not common practice. It sounds simple, and it is simple. Guerrilla marketing is designed to be simple, but it's also designed to be applicable and very easily implementable. The last concept that I want to talk about today is PR. Any PR is good PR unless it's an obituary, is what I say. And I talk about tying your business to something going on in the news. and what I call hitchhiking PR, making yourself available as an expert, because I already told you you're an expert, to comment on particular news stories. For instance, those in the financial business, interest rates are always being talked about in the news. You can make yourself available to an editor or a producer and talk about interest rates as a financial expert. I've done work with chiropractors and doctors and physicians, and there's always these running events in communities. You can make yourself available as an expert to comment on things to do before a race, stretching exercises to do after a race, what to eat, what not to eat, and so on and so forth. That's how you tie yourself to something going on in the news, and that will get you exposed in publications as well as on the air and radio and TV. So you can see that each one of these days has some specific tactics that we cover in the book, and we summarize them with the action plan at the end of each chapter. And when people walk away, they walk away with a marketing plan when they prioritize which days work best for them. And that's the other benefit of this book. So hopefully that gives you the flavor that you're looking for, and it'll help people understand it. You can dive into this thing. It's an easy read, and walk away with implementable tactics.
Excellent. Thank you for that. That was well done. I appreciate you going through the different days. And the one thing I noticed is how thorough the book is, but at the same time, I mean, you cover the like you said, the 36, I guess, days or 30 days in just over 300 pages. So you can tell there's not a whole lot of fluff.
Well, I'm not all about theory. I'm really about practicality. And as a business owner, I had to do these things to survive first, and then to thrive after that. So what I took away from that experience, I put in the book so people could use it as a working document that they could use as a living document.
Great. You might have answered the next question already, I think, when you were talking about your favorite chapter, but I'll ask anyway. If the reader could only take one concept, principle, or action item out of the entire book, what would you want that to be?
Well, one of the biggest mistakes businesses make is they know they have to market, but they don't. You know, the plumber is really good at plumbing, and he needs business, but he doesn't know how to market. This gives the starting point, the step-by-step, the roadmap, the plan. So the takeaway is, here's my starting point, and here's my step-by-step. I don't have to be intimidated or fearful anymore because I don't know anything about marketing. I don't have to be afraid to start with something. You can start with one day. And once that gets going, you can start with another day. You can't do all 36 days. I can't do all 36 days. You have to prioritize. You have to pick and choose. That's why we made the variety available to the readers here. So the main point is, you know, you have to market, but you don't. Here's what will take away that excuse.
Excellent. Al, do you have a favorite quote from your book?
Oh, goodness. Yes, I could talk about quotes all the time, and you heard them a little bit in some of my description. I don't know if I can boil it down to one, so I'm going to give you a couple or three quick ones, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Spend over half your marketing time and half your marketing dollars on current customers. Put your message where your target market can see it. You're an expert. And features tell and benefits sell. Those are good snippets to walk away with from this.
Excellent. Okay, very good. And if there was only one book that you could recommend to our listeners, and it doesn't have to be on marketing, it can be anything at all, but a book that has impacted your life, what would that be? What would you recommend?
Here again, it's so tough to give you one. So I'm going to start with three, and I'll see if I can narrow it down. One of my favorites of all time that I keep going back to, and believe it or not, you have to dig for the lessons that kind of are guiding lights and guiding principles. It's the autobiography of Ben Franklin. And I'm a history buff. I love biographies. Ben Franklin used to be a printer, and I used to be in the printing business, and so on. So the autobiography of Ben Franklin is one that stays real close on my desk. I have to give kudos to the very original Guerrilla Marketing book that came out in 1984 that got me passionate about marketing for all these many years. So I have to really give credence to that one book, and it's just called Guerrilla Marketing. There are over 35 books in the Guerrilla Marketing series, and that was the one that kicked it all off. And J. Conrad Levinson, the father of Guerrilla Marketing, wrote that book, and he's my co-author on Guerrilla Marketing in 30 Days. Unfortunately, he passed away about 6 months ago. One more book that is probably one of my favorite marketing books that continues to guide me in all that I do with customers, prospects, writing, speaking, and that is it's a book called The Psychology of Influence by Robert Cialdini. It's a psychology book, but a lot of marketing is about psychology. So that one is right at the top of my Kindle readings that I refer to on airplanes and things like that, because being a good marketer means understanding psychology and how people think and act and so on and so on. So I keep that very close to me. So I probably boil it down to the very first Guerrilla Marketing book, since that's been such an impact on my life and my livelihood.
Very good. Well, thank you for your time today, Al. And before we depart, can you recommend the best way for our listeners to get more information on you and Guerrilla Marketing in 30 Days?
Sure. The book's available at all the online outlets, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's in the Barnes & Noble stores. The new edition has just arrived this week. My website is Market for Profits, FOR, marketforprofits.com. And I just recommend that people Google me. I used to do a lot of writing for Entrepreneur Magazine, and all those articles are still there. I'm doing some more writing for Entrepreneur Magazine. They're the publisher of half of my books. So just Google me, and you'll see a lot of good takeaway marketing articles that people can use. I'm real big on implementation, and you can get all kinds of things that way. So just Google me, and my personal contact information is out there. I'm very accessible, and I love talking to people. Never hesitate to call or email.
Great. And now, will you give us just a quick plug on your next book that's coming out?
July 15th, Market Like You Mean It is released. It's also published by Entrepreneur Media, and it will be available at all the same spots that I mentioned earlier. Market Like You Mean It is a compilation of stories that relate to the concept of getting noticed, getting remembered, and getting talked about. And there are some pop culture examples. There's some B2B examples, some B2C examples. The book is full of those kinds of stories. But once again, with my slant on implementation, I share some what we call marketing truths and ways to take some of these pop culture types of things and use them in business today and learn from them. So it's like lessons from these stories for each story, and there are over 100 stories in this book.
Great. Well, I can't wait to have you back on to discuss that one as well.
I look forward to that as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, and I'll plan on talking to you here soon.
All right. Excellent. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks again for listening in today. If you would like to get your hands on Guerrilla Marketing in 30 Days or any of the other resources mentioned by Al, just look at the show notes at the elpodcast.com.
Looking for your next book idea? Head over to the elpodcast.com, where Wade shares his amazing resource, the top 10 business books recommended by over 500 entrepreneurs, with you for free. That's the elpodcast.com. Till the next time, keep it on the EL.